You know, of all the shows about a Chicago family laundering money for a Mexican drug cartel, Ozark would have to be my favorite. You know, at its core, Ozark is really about two people who screwed up so badly that there's no turning back. There's only moments of peace and calm. Right now, Stephen Hanbury and Kait Howell are with me, and we're going to review Season 3 of Ozark. I thought Wendy kind of went all in during this season in many different ways. It was pretty captivating to watch, like, how gone she was. Like, who is this person at this point? It really became obvious that it was all about the money and all about, like, harnessing that power. Mm-hmm. And I thought she really depicted that well, and the show did that well. This kind of, like, slow and, like, steady increase of the things she was kind of willing to do as long as she got what she wanted. And, you know, like, I think certainly she was still terrified, but she almost masked that with, like, an addiction to be in control and to kind of just have a heavy impact. What did you guys think about, I guess, Wendy and Marty's relationship during this season?
Yeah, I think Laura Linney is amazing. She's an amazing actress. And I also, for me, like, she became more scary than Darlene. You know, everyone thinks of Darlene as this, like, ooh, the crazy lady, but I was like, I don't know, Wendy's power, you know, and, like, everyone looks at Wendy and she's not like, oh, there's that crazy lady Wendy. They're like, oh yeah, Wendy, cool, but she's scary. Like, I wouldn't want her on my bad side.
Yeah, I mean, definitely from the start of, I think from the end of season 2, there was that shot of them together taking that family photo in front of the Missouri Bell. And then you get to the end of season 3 and you see the two of them together, and we can get to the ending in a second. But between those two shots, the relationship of Marty and Wendy could not be more broken. Like, it's weird that you have those two shots kind of ending the season, but so many times again and again, Wendy just exerting her power over Marty and that whole family. And she has her own reasons to do it. I guess, you know, she'd been home for a lot of the time, and this is interesting to her to a certain extent. And in season 3, I think we begin to see how it takes the toll on their family, but just time after time, you know, usurping her husband's power and control over the family. She's a fascinating character. And like you said, Kait, like, the acting, and we can talk about the acting later, but the acting all around on the show is terrific. And her, of course, is one of the best.
Yeah, like, speaking of family, so, like, the kids now are, like, very much a part of the business. They were kind of obviously into it before, but not so willingly. And I found, like, an interesting part of season 3 was that, like, they had completely crossed over to the other side along with their parents. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At least in the first half of season 3, I would say, like, they were, like, just essentially, like, 2 additional employees for Marty and Wendy. Like, they were going along with it. You saw Charlotte in the office with Wendy. So I think, like, they realized it's a mess, but they're, like, completely helping out at this point. It's interesting to see, like, because now the entire family really has gone from a white collar family to, like, a life of criminal activity. So they're very similar to the Langmores in that sense. And you know, from the onset, it's kind of billed like the Birds and the Langmores are like polar opposites, but as time goes on, they're actually quite similar.
Yeah, I mean, I found the kids to be fascinating, both in their own kind of different ways. I'm curious what you guys thought about the son, about Jonah. Like, I feel like he's a more complicated character in terms of his goals and in terms of his mental state. Like, I think in this season, Wendy had talked about how Jonah reminds her a little bit of her brother Ben. Yeah. And as we get to see what happens to his demise, I'm just kind of curious what you guys think of Jonah as a character and where he might go down the road.
He's just so young that he's so impressionable, right? So he was kind of thrust into this at such a young age that, you know, this is almost his normal. Like, this is what he's known. So yeah, fast forward to the scene where Jonah's holding a shotgun to Helen, which was one of the more powerful scenes of the season. I think he's just been so impressionable from the beginning that he hasn't really had a normal childhood, right? I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and I think for him, I feel for him in that scene, because you feel like he just wants somebody to trust, you know? Like, it was the old man, then it was his uncle, and like he develops these relationships with these men that he thinks he can trust, and then, you know, they end up dying and him not having anyone to turn to. And so he only has his parents, really, it feels like, right? Like, even when he's like trying to find a girlfriend, like, he only ever has his parents, and to know that his parents destroyed that relationship with his uncle, it's devastating.
Even when they moved from Chicago to the Ozarks, like, as you saw in the first couple of seasons, Jonah's only friend was Buddy in the basement there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For a young child's only friend to be, you know, an ailing, you know, 80-year-old man, I mean, that's kind of sad in itself too, right?
I feel like, especially in this season 3, we see the push and pull of how much Jonah wants to be involved, how much he wants to know. You know, you have that scene with the shotgun, but you also have him. I can't remember all the details, but something with a video game business, like trying to help launder money to the family that way. So I think even internally, he's conflicted as to how much he wants to get involved with this.
That provided a bit of a comedic element too, right? Like when he was opening up bank accounts and like offshore accounts.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
And especially seeing Marty and Wendy's reaction to it, being like, who is this person? When if you see that reflection of themselves, it's like, well, of course that makes sense.
And even those awkward moments around the dinner table when Jonah is bringing up those moments, you can see in both Marty and Wendy's eyes that they're like, oh, this kid actually could be quite the asset to us. Like, he's actually doing good work, which is just hilarious but awful.
He bought the drone, and that played a big part
yes.
in terms of towards the end there, yeah.
We brought up Wendy's brother Ben, which was certainly a big part of season 3. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that whole arc, because I did think it was a bit of a detour. First of all, they used the fact that he was bipolar as, you know, this plot device, and, you know, that I don't know if that sat really well with me, but it didn't really make much sense, all in all, that like Marty and Wendy would like truly allow someone like this to like completely get in the way. And I realize it's her brother, but still, like, you know, family hasn't really stopped them in the past. So like Ben was completely destabilizing. And the fact that he, you know, continued to mess up one after the other, it felt almost unnecessary at times. Like, it was just kind of like this weak plot points. You know, he had effective scenes and, you know, it was very dramatic. But to me, at least, it kind of felt like it went on a little bit too long. But as both of you have mentioned already in the call too, like Laura Linney as Wendy really shined in these moments when she had to, quote unquote, deal with her brother.
Yeah, I thought his acting was amazing. Like, especially that scene in I think he's in the taxi. I thought that was incredible acting. But I think you are right in the sense that it seemed like if this was a real life situation, you'd think that if you had a brother who was, you know, struggling with mental health issues, you'd be like, you know what? Maybe you shouldn't be around our family that's involved with the drug cartel. You know?
I think that's a reasonable thing.
So I see what you're saying. Like, you know, you'd think it would be like, and they're so calculated too, and everything else. It seems like especially Marty, I feel like, you know, really like looks to the future, is very calculated in his moves, and same with Wendy. That, you know, they always have a strategy. So why wouldn't the strategy be, you know, get their brother to safety before he finds out anything?
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, I don't know if I liked the introduction of his character, and for many of the reasons, like you said, like it kind of just felt like Deus Ex new character. But as the season kept going, his storyline for me was like one of the more, if not the most interesting part of the whole season, and like begins with that first scene when you don't really know who he is, and he's like throwing cell phones into a wood chipper.
Oh yes.
But I think some of the most emotional and heart-wrenching scenes were with Ben. You know, when he is having these conversations with Wendy about getting put into a mental institution, and then at the end, of course, when Wendy decides that he's a liability, that he really was kind of an emotional, the emotional core of this season, in my opinion.
I think speaking of standout scenes, I think one of the other scenes was when Ben confronted Helen at her house with her daughter there. That's when it was just so real that, you know, he was going to take potentially everyone down. Let's talk about maybe my favorite character. Let's talk about Dr. Sue.
Oh, Dr. Sue. That poor lady.
As
Just
she
wanted to live the good life.
As she said, just as a pie is only good as its crust, a marriage is only as good as its trust. You know what I'm saying?
Ain't that the truth?
I thought she was a very delightful comedic break from all the action.
Yeah.
And
she was. Yeah.
She obviously became much more involved than I thought she was going to, leading to her demise. But just a great creation.
Yeah, she was a much needed break from all the heavier moments, I thought. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I would pay to have her as my therapist.
I think you're too late.
Some valuable insights. Yeah. I can't afford her, really.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I love the innocence of Sue realizing that, oh, maybe buying a McLaren was not the in my best interest.
Just to blend in, yeah. I think the other favorite character, I would assume amongst all three of us, is Ruth. Mm-hmm. I think Ruth is the best foul-mouthed character we've seen on television in a long time. Her voice is fantastic, her accent, and I think, she's used to, if you look at the entire, arc of the show, she's used to dealing with morons who really never give her the respect she deserves. Mm-hmm. And all of these quote-unquote morons that she has to deal with never think that she's as competent as she really is. She's, in fact, quite highly competent. So I think whoever doubts her, she proves time and time again that she's going to get the best of them. And I think she always kind of does what's best for her family too, right? Like even you saw it with Wyatt, she broke that news. I guess that was the end of season 2. But you know that she's going to do what's best for her family despite how hard it might be for them or how hard it might be on her.
Especially considering how much she's gone through in terms of her personal life. Like she had to kill her own uncles in the first season, had her father die in the second season, and then had Ben die at the end of this season. Like she's been through the ringer, both personally in terms of her job, but also in terms of her own family and personal relationships. And the fact that she's still on speaking terms with these people is amazing.
Yeah, I think too. Like for me, I think like Ruth, she's such a strong character, but I think there's also like you see moments of vulnerability. You know what I mean? Like
oh, totally.
Like in the first couple of seasons, I feel like I thought she was kind of a liability to their business. You're like, oh, is she going to break? I don't know. Mm-hmm. And then she proves her loyalty again and again, which I thought was interesting in this season because now you're like, okay, maybe she's not going to be loyal anymore because they've pushed it too far. But I thought it was interesting that, she does feel like the birds are family and then they kind of weren't there to support her in the final moments.
She's extremely cunning as well in terms of some of her ideas. And I remember when she wanted to launder money at the new casino with like this slot scam, and even the first season, like wiring up the lake with the electricity. Like she fits that mold that the birds want of somebody that can come up with these ideas, I guess.
Let's talk about Darlene and Wyatt. Didn't this relationship make you believe in love again?
It certainly did.
Who was asking for it?
So just to recap, so the newly widowed, I guess, Darlene Snell seduces Wyatt Langmore in this season. So not only is she getting him to work on the farm, but she's getting him to work in bed. And I thought this was a pretty unsettling storyline. It was a little hard to watch. Part of the unsettling, I guess, obviously, is the fact that Wyatt, on one hand, was supposed to be like the outlier Langmore, right? Like he was the one that got into university. He was the first to do that. Mm-hmm. Him and Ruth had that special moment in season 2 where they got the news of his admission. But now, because Ruth revealed that, she ended up killing his father and uncle, he's back to kind of his old ways. He's lost. He's confused. He's, going through grief. And, this season was supposed to be the follow-up to that emotional moment, and then Darlene steps in. Darlene's old enough to be his grandmother, so it's pretty disturbing.
I mean, it definitely caught me off guard, but I will say, and I might be the crazy one for saying this, but I thought there was some interesting learnings in the relationship when Darlene kind of confessed to killing her husband, and he was like, you know what, it's okay, it's a lot, I'll get over it. And it's almost like they have this relationship where they like truly accept each other for who they are. Mm-hmm. I know the relationship obviously is like a little disturbing, but that part I thought was nice.
I love how you're like defensive. You're like, oh, no, I know it's weird, but
find someone who accepts you for who you truly are. Isn't that what true love is really all about?
but what's concerning is that who Darlene truly is. She could either kill someone in a drug cartel like Dell, or kill her own husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like another. Oh, that was Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah.
Where did they leave off with Darlene and the baby? It kind of seems like that plot just ended after there was like a court date or something where Wyatt defended her. But like, I was very curious what you thought about Darlene and Wendy. Kind of, they both want that baby Zeke, I guess.
I think it was just that, like, they did the court case, and then that was it from what I remember. Yeah. Which is, interesting. It just kind of was funny that, and then that was it, Like, Wendy wanted that baby back so bad, and then it was just kind of fell off, from what I remember anyway.
What about the guy who kept spending in the casino? That's Sam. What
Sam?
were your thoughts on him, Kate?
I feel so bad for Sam.
He's a bit of a putz, as we were saying during our rehearsal.
Yeah, and my heart goes out to him. And his poor wife, who was like, what the heck's going on?
That was quite the proposal, in the casino. And then seconds later, he's arrested.
I feel like don't you feel like him and Jonah should be friends, though? I feel like that would be a good match.
A bromance. I think he was the one character where every time there'd be a scene, like then you'd see him on screen, I'd think to myself, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
It's always something new with him.
So let's perhaps get to the final scene. Now, Steve, I'm going to let you start on this one because I remember you texted me before I had seen it, and you said, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the last scene actually made me jump.
It did actually, yeah. Mainly because I just didn't see it coming at all. It was really like a jump scare moment where I didn't expect Helen to die. I expect maybe something to come to Marty or Wendy given the situation they were in, but I did not expect Helen to die. And the ending was really amazing, and is a real. It's going to be interesting to see how season 4 begins. But yeah, I did not expect Helen to die at all.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming either. I thought something was going to happen with the birds, but did not at all expect that Helen was going to die. But I do find it interesting because I think he said something like "Welcome to the family" or like "We're about to begin" or something like that. And it's, I don't know. I found I don't know if you found this or maybe this was my own read of it, but I felt like they had like kind of sexual chemistry a little bit, like Wendy and
Navarro.
Navarro, yes, thank you. So I like now that Marty's there too. Like I'm interested to see where that goes.
That's a good point.
Because
Kate, you haven't been out of the house in a while, have you?
No, this is my quarantine speaking.
No, that's interesting. That could very well happen.
Even if it's not like sexual tension, but like there's like that relationship between Wendy and Navarro seems like more than business partners.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, like, why do you think Navarro ended up killing Helen over one of the birds? And my gut reaction is that I think Navarro thought that Wendy had proved herself to be loyal and trustworthy because she actually ended up killing her brother.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that was a big part of why maybe Navarro went with Wendy over Helen, because, a lot of Helen's activity in the third season was dealing with her daughter, her ex-husband. She was kind of all over the map, right? And a lot of her role when it came to like the cartel and stuff was almost trying to stop Wendy and Marty with what they were doing. So in Navarro's eyes, he could have just been thinking like this lady Helen isn't on the ball like she used to be. So I'm going with the new people. Yeah,
I think it was after watching it and digesting. I think there is twofold in my opinion. One was what you were talking about was Wendy proving herself. I think for a lot of it, Wendy was trying to look for, we need to seem more valuable as a couple than Helen. And Marty wanted to always de-escalate, but Wendy took that step to kill her brother. And that was a good thing in the eyes of the Navarro cartel, or would prove to be that they would be somebody that could be useful, or at least more so than Helen. And second, there were some loose ends that were starting to happen with Helen, both with her daughter knowing and her ex-husband, and so he just made that call, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I thought too that he might have found out that she went to the FBI and tried to frame Marty.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe. Like he might have had a mole or something.
Yeah.
In terms of like a season of television, I think Ozark is at a really interesting point in the series right now. Like it seems to continue to build. There's a few things here and there that I don't think have been as organic as maybe they should have been in terms of, plot devices. A la like Ben's brother coming into the picture. I think that could have been a bit more seamless, but it was still very much like enjoyable and intriguing to watch. I will say, I think the best shows kind of rewrite their rules before like their viewers have a chance to get used to them. And I think a prime example of that this season was at least in the first couple episodes, I think most viewers would have thought, oh, this season's all going to be about the casino. And it turned out to be just kind of like a backdrop.
It's true.
A lot of different things happened, including her brother, including, the increase of like Navarro being a part of the picture, them kidnapping Marty. We didn't even mention that for a good 2-3 episodes there where he was away, being tortured essentially. So, it's a very gripping series, and I'm like really interested to see where season 4 goes. But yeah, I will say like Helen dying in the final scene and the way that was visually shot and produced was enough for me to say like, okay, this show knows what it's doing.
I'm very curious to see where Wendy's character goes from here. I think first and foremost, I think she was the one that in this season led the charge to want to be more involved with Navarro, and Marty wanted to keep taking a step back. So Marty was always on page with not being with Navarro anymore. And I'm wondering how the death of Helen will affect Wendy. Will she finally go to Marty's side and say, okay, we got to get out of this? Or is this going to be something that makes her go deeper in with Navarro? I think that her character will be especially with Ben now dead too. So there's two things that might change her mind. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Ruth and the birds, because especially now that Helen's dead and there was that, hinting that maybe Ruth would work with her. And now that she's not there anymore, kind of what happens? I mean, I'm assuming maybe something with Darlene or what have you, but to me that'll be an interesting development, especially because they've been in cahoots for so long.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, there should have been a scene about this, but rest in peace, Dr. Sue.
Yes.
They're going to hide the money in her mausoleum now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.